welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my lovely guest today is Miss Kerry Walker,
Hey, everybody.
formerly a co-host of the Joyride Show, and now involved in her new show called Alice Eats the Apple. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we always have these incredible deep dive conversations, and that's usually how these shows end up happening. We're like, we should really talk about that on the show. And then we get on the show and we totally forget what we were going to talk about.
Well, we moved on. I mean, we just keep going.
It kind of evolves from there.
Didn't we have something really important, like
Yeah,
earth-changing?
didn't we have something really pivotal and profound to share? Anyway, I wanted to, first of all, have Kerry just go back briefly because she has been on this incredibly accelerated path the last probably, what did you say, 3 years, maybe 4 years?
Well, I think it was probably
3.
6 months to a year before Joyride, and Joyride was actually on my birthday, April 21st, 2016.
So it's been a while,
Yeah,
a little while.
a little while.
And so Joyride started, well, I'm going to let you tell the story, how your Joyride show started.
Okay, so I've always, not always, but when I was a younger child, I had experiences, and my grandfather passed away. He came to all of us, or at least 3 of us that I know of that night, and told us that he was going and that he loved us very much and he would see us again. And so I was probably about 6 or 7. I also had it was his, I believe that these things come through lines, I can't say the word, familial lines. Mm-hmm. So my grandfather had this ability. His great-grandmother had this ability. She could remove things from your body. She just knew things. But people didn't talk about it then.
Right.
It was just she's the one
People went to. They knew about her.
And I think that it was just something she did. I don't think she really paid it much attention and paid much attention to it. And so, anyway, so it's always sort of been in the background. But, and I grew up sailing, so we never went to church. And so I didn't, now I look back, I realize I didn't have to undo dogma. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's enough of that just in the air. Mm-hmm. And
definitely.
So, what's that?
I said definitely.
Yeah. So then we move forward, dream about a great-grandmother died, and the bowler hat man, the man with the trench coat and a hat, I saw him one night outside my window when I was a child. Went back and asked my mother about that, and she said, yes, I remember you saying that because I was a little bit freaked out that there was a man around our house. And
other people have seen this.
Mm-hmm, I've asked people
Interestingly.
randomly. Exactly. Yeah. And he is a guy, and they try to paint him out as a scary thing. I never felt that way. I mean, it was startling to see someone outside your home in the middle of the night. And I remember, so I had these 2 windows, my bed between the 2 windows, and my head and my feet would always get, like, I always end up in the wrong spot. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking down, and we lived in the
country?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for finishing that word. And there was a full moon, and so I could see. And I remember looking, like waking up, and I've always had bad eyesight.
How old were you? 7, 8?
Yeah, something like that, like 8, 9. And I remember looking down, and I see this man looking directly, like, dead in my eyes, directly at me. And I just remember it's like,
that's so unnerving.
And I just froze. Like, if I freeze, he might not see me.
Right.
And it was just interesting, but it's always been in the back of my mind.
That stuck with you.
It did. And so forward, Charles, my husband, when we started to date, said, he was funny. He was like, you're like this little witch, like you love to concoct things and, and I just remember thinking, oh, I love that. I mean, so I've always loved the alternative way, like maybe there's more to things, maybe there's a deeper meaning, and I've always been accused of overthinking. And I remember running energy with a girlfriend of mine when I was probably 13. We would sit and not touch hands, but like hold our hands above each other, and I didn't know what that was. I just remember thinking, wow,
this is interesting.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'd forgotten this.
But not really having an awareness of what that was. You're just like, this is cool.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And so, and I anyway, so there have been things throughout my life, but I never really focused. And then, honestly, I had a girlfriend of mine that I grew up with that I was really close to, who early 20s joined an ashram, and kind of we never saw her, like for 10 years, didn't see her again. Wow. And changed her name, and she was very, very much in the mainstream before that, and just beautiful person.
That's a radical shift.
Well, it was, but the reason I bring it up is that it scared me because I remember thinking, I want to have kids and get married and
You don't want to go off the grid for 10 years
no, and I thought
disappear.
in order to be spiritual, that's what you had to do. Like you had to go so far.
It's funny how we have these preconceived ideas of what
box.
spirituality looks like, what the journey looks like, what organized religion looks like, but really there's such a huge gamut. I mean, it's really infinite,
Well,
the ways you
you.
can find yourself,
That's
right? It's
exactly
really
right.
coming back to you, right?
Well, I thought I couldn't shave my legs. I had to use crystal for deodorant, and I live in Houston. I could get pretty gross fast, and like I had really all these and I was like, I like pretty things, and
Preconceived
I like,
ideas. You're a designer.
uh-huh.
You have, incredible taste. We're filming in Kerry's beautiful home.
Well, if you ever watch any of my stuff, it's like I drag my stuff all around the house because it's like, well, I think we want to do something else today. Anyway, so then let's fast forward. I've always been intrigued, like I said, with spirits and that type of thing, but I never really went into it because I was always afraid of it. I've always thought that there are bad things out there, and I didn't know, and so I just really stayed away from all that. So then a girlfriend of mine died in 2013, I believe. I have no concept of time. Anyway, she very quickly passed away, and she had 2 young children. One was a good friend of my son's, one of my kids, and so that happened. And then right around the same time, I had this little spot on my arm, which I tell everybody about this. It's a little tiny spot, and I have a girlfriend that's an oncological derm. So that's what she does.
How perfect.
Yeah. Melanoma, skin cancers. Mm-hmm. So she looked at it, she's like, it's fine. And I trust her very much, really. And so I went to another doctor just to get the whole scan and just to kind of get the baseline of, because I'm very pale and did a lot of sunburning. Mm-hmm. And that doctor's like, yep, I agree. Something made me go back in. I called and they said the spot just opened up, and so I
synchronicity.
Went to the wrong doctor even.
Really?
There were 2 doctors with the same name.
Oh my God!
So I went in and I said, just take it off. I don't know what it is, and it looks like a freckle. It's fine, but I'm sure. But take it off. She calls me back. She said, yeah, good catch, melanoma, and that's the one that spreads fairly quickly.
Right.
And we've had a couple friends pass away of that. From that, and it was sort of interesting because I found out I had it, but then I found out it was gone all at the same time because it was contained, it hadn't spread. So
that was eye-opening.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're not wired to think that we die. None of us get out of here alive.
And you have young children, so that was probably.
And I just lost a girlfriend, and
Right.
so all of these things kind of came to this point, right? And I need to tell you too that my guides, I've always believed in having a team, and I knew my guides came to me probably in my early 20s and said, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" And it was like, no, and I didn't know what that meant, and I got on this. They asked me to get on a tram, and I got on the tram, and I'm like, I can't do it, and so I got off, and again I was afraid, and I'll tell you why when we get to that point. But what I realized, so. Here we are, 2013. Friend passes away. Found out I had this, but it's fine. I'm gonna be fine. I'm sitting in the tub, and I told God, I said, okay, you put me here, I'm ready. Tell me what you want me to do. But I want a sign I'm not nuts. I mean, that's my caveat. My poor guides, they're like, we have to tell you 10 times before you actually believe something. And
then you're like, one more, just one more.
No, did I make that up? Is that
15
real?
signs later, you're like, no, but really,
oh
just one more.
Did you see that? Okay, hold on.
Just one more
You have to see
sign.
This is I found this the other day.
Oh, that's so funny. If you're waiting for a sign, this is it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think
Just a little friendly reminder.
So exactly. So I end up the next morning. I wake up and I've been in my home for at this point for probably 7 years, and I've had my Fiesta wear plates for 10 years.
What year was that you had this experience?
I think 2013.
Wow, so
Maybe
it's a while ago.
Maybe 2014. I don't remember. Anyway, right around. I know it was after 2012, and and so I look in my mirror in my cabinet. Anyway, I look in my cabinet, reflecting off of my plates with a light that's above. I mean, it's a reflection. Is a perfect. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-sided pyramid with a perfect eye. You can see the iris, you can see the pupil, and I
That's
mean,
so radical
it
and
was
cool.
amazing. I'm like, I don't know what it means, but I think that might be my son. And I'm like, Charles's mom was here, and I said, do you see that? She's like, yes, I see it. And they change. I mean, I have one that looks like Saturn, one that looks, and I can't always make it happen. And I've played with the lights.
They just kind of show up on time.
They do, and they don't show up for some people, which I find interesting. Like someone will be here, I'm like, yeah, you want to see my eye, and it's not there.
It's gone.
Yeah. So then I decided that I was coming out of the metaphysical closet.
That's a huge step for
then,
all of us
do you
to
remember
take.
That? It's like you vacuum up anything you can get your hands on.
Yes, you're reading a million books, you're talking to people, you're watching shows, you're YouTubing.
You're wearing
you're
things
like,
that say, I do yoga. You know,
you do
I'm
yoga
awake,
all of a sudden?
Yeah, oh yeah. Started doing yoga.
Nothing against yoga. I like
no.
yoga.
Well,
but it's like you go on this self-discovery journey all of a sudden where you're just in full seeker mode.
Well, you're like a sponge.
You are. You
anything.
are.
But what I found, like, there's something that's
interesting.
That is too far out. And all my friends will attest, you can attest to this, that I will reach a point, and I know it's right before a big growth, like right before something, like a big breakthrough. I'm like, this shit's, I'm tired, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
I've been through that several times with you.
Yeah.
We were like,
that's part of the Kerry Club. Fuck this, I'm not doing it. I don't know why
I'm
God's
done.
asking me to do this.
We're all crazy.
Well, that is a really big deal for me, not being crazy. But anyway, so got the sign, took a couple of Reiki classes, and I feel very strongly that when you are waking up, it's an opportunity to heal a lot of wounds, and that if the healing doesn't take place, it's like an out of balance washer, dishwasher. Or not dishwasher, clothes washer. And it's like, dum, 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 dum. And that's...
To get your attention.
Well, and I think a lot of times, yes, and when you're ready to clear something, they can come up, and it's not always easy.
Clearing is the most uncomfortable experience ever.
Well, first you have to see it, and these patterns and this behavior. And
which is hard enough.
It is.
It's looking at yourself, at your shit.
Well, and I believe the way
tough.
it manifests, for somehow it's tied to ego. And your ego, I don't believe that you slay your ego. I don't believe that you get rid of ego.
I don't think you can ever fully get rid of your ego, but you can tame it a little bit.
Well, I think what they're talking about is I mean, for me, it is I am here to do God's work, whatever that is. Whether it's picking up a can on the side of the street, or it's helping a kid, or it's helping someone, or telling someone something I got through mindfulness, whatever, but it's not me. It's coming through me, and I think it's when I'm a guru, and this is what I do, and and you hear these stories, and this always just infuriates me when I hear, which I guess I should look at.
I think everybody is their own guru.
Well,
I don't even think. I mean, well, I know, but what I'm saying is, every single person has their own answers and their own path, and they need to trust themselves enough to follow that, whatever that is.
We're not trained that. We're trained that you go to the expert.
People are in that hive mind.
It is hive
which
mind.
We need to break out of. People. That's a very dangerous place to be, where you are afraid to think for yourself, honor your truth, find your own path. Mm-hmm. That's the ticket out.
Well, but it's scary, and it's easier to have somebody tell you what your path is. This is your path. No, that's your path, and you're asking me to come along on your path.
Exactly.
And that is, and I think the way it manifests is when you see people that you think are these enlightened beings, and they're telling people things, and
there's so much pressure.
Well, no, but my point is that then they come back and you find out that they're actually raping people, or they're actually doing these,
or they're saying all the right things and not doing their own inner work
because they know what to say. But I think that goes back to not healing, and I think that's an unhealed
healing is
healer.
is the key.
Well, I don't think we're ever truly 100% there. I mean, maybe we.
It's an eternal process, but once you start and you get more comfortable with being in the uncomfortable spaces, those in kind of the fire, sitting in the fire, and processing and releasing those traumas or wounds or whatever you want to call it, I think as you go through the process over and over, it gets a little bit easier to transcend.
And to see it.
Well, recognizing it for sure, but actually transmuting it and releasing it becomes easier and easier.
Right.
that in the beginning it's so hard because there's just so much resistance and we have such a different perspective around it. But as you go through the process, it's like, they always say it's like layers, right? You're peeling back layers, peeling back layers. The layers start to come off a little bit easier.
Yeah, they start flaking.
Yeah.
Well, and I view it, I mean, I just had one that just came up, and you and I were together, and it's like, for me, it's a spiral, and I come to the same place, and it's like, oh, fuck, I'm here again, but you're there.
So been there. You're like, I just thought I was over this.
But there's a little
issue.
bit more. But though,
Always.
that it does feel lighter, and it does, like...
And it clears a little bit faster, I think. I mean, that's been true for me.
I think it's true, and I think for most of it, it's sort of like the battering ram. It sits and it hits the door, and then the door just gets a little jigglier, and it opens easier. It's like, okay, good, I'm in.
And that spiral to me is time. Like time, instead of being a linear, we look at time as a linear, sequential experience, but really time is a spiral. So the spiral Kerry's talking about is we are traveling through time, we are spiraling, and then we're hitting that same nexus point with a different experience or a different individual, but it's the same core issue being triggered for us. It's like another opportunity for us to evolve or process or clear something. And if we respond to it the same way, guess what? It's going to come back around, people. So we really need to just face it head on and clear it. And it's going to come back in a more aggressive way.
Yeah, it does. It gets louder.
That's kind of what I've noticed.
What I think happens is, so I'm a very concrete, very contextual person. So like I need, it's like, how do you clear it? And for me, it's you turn and you're like, okay, this sucks. Why am I feeling this way? Where am I seeing this? Where did this come from?
And what's this about for me?
Exactly.
Right?
And usually you can tie that back to either a situation or a feeling or a fear, usually.
It's usually fear.
It is almost
always fear, actually.
And anyway, so I hopping back on the Kerry train, I had so I have surrounded myself with very grounded people, and I realize now, I've had a lot of folks reach out to me, say, my husband's just not into this. My wife is just not into this. And you have, we've talked about this. Tiffany and I have talked about this. My co-host before. I believe that there are people here to anchor and to support.
And ground us.
So that we don't, I've always thought of myself as a balloon.
A balloon, and they tether us. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
They do. And so does, I am grounded by my children and routine and which I've always.
Everyday responsibilities, life responsibilities, getting them to baseball, whatever, feeding them, all that.
Yeah,
dogs.
They want to eat.
Yes, they do.
So I took the Reiki classes, and then I decided to be honest, and I live in an area with a lot of folks that I judged were not in the same place I was. Not that I thought I was better than, it's just that, a lot of doctors and lawyers and that kind of thing. And I didn't want to tell people what I did because I didn't want to be judged, and I didn't want to be goofy in the flake.
Well, you live in a very upscale community, and people are professionals, and they're very entrenched in the 3D world, and they're very successful by that definition, society standards. And so it takes a lot of courage to come out and say, actually, I think my perspective is this, and it's kind of way outside of their comfort zone.
You want an example of this? I was at our gym, and this woman, she reminded me of my grandmother. She's just so cute and sweet, and so we were getting dressed, and I'm not sure why she started telling me, but her husband had passed away, and I was like,
and he's standing right there,
right behind you.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
And she's a judge.
Did she freak out?
No, she was really sweet. And whatever it is I said, I don't remember what I said, but I said something. And so gave her my phone number because she cried. Gave her my phone number, and she called me. And
she did call.
And she
so
said,
she felt his presence, I'm sure.
Well, whatever it is I said,
you said the right thing. Struck a chord.
Struck something with her.
Yeah.
Whether I don't know. And again, I don't know what I said because it wasn't me.
Right.
And then we had lunch, and I made my mom go with me. And she looks at my mom and she said, "So are you psychic too?" And I said, "I'm not psychic. I don't know what I'm not psychic." And this is before the triangle. And
Right.
cabinet.
Except that
And she
you
was
saw
like,
her dead husband
yeah.
standing behind. But,
And,
you know.
But I can't control it. It's a hit or miss thing.
Right.
And anyway, so that was a time. And one time I thought the guides were testing me, which I don't think they do that. And I was standing in Starbucks, and because I'd said I will pass along, because at this point I thought I'm going to be a medium. This is what I'm going to do. No, that if there's a message, I will pass it along, no matter how awkward this
Oh,
gets.
gosh, Kerry, when you open that door,
Yeah.
you get into such uncomfortable situations.
I felt this man's heart. I felt this,
Oh,
like
gosh.
this, and so I'm walking to
gosh.
Starbucks. I'm like, I'm not going. I'm not going. I mean, I look like a crazy loon, not wanting to be crazy. And here I am. I'm like, I'm not going to tell him. I can't walk up to a stranger and say, "By the way, how's your heart?" And I'm like, fuck. Okay, fine. So I go back and I'm like, okay,
I've totally had this experience.
I want to ask you something. This is really bizarre. I have this, whatever you want to call it, whatever. So tell me about your heart. And he's like, so, I mean, he was probably 70. And he's like, well, now that you're talking. And I said, no, really. Tell me about your heart. And he's like, and then he clicked into this. He said, no, I just had a scan done, so I'm fine. I said, okay, I just wanted to pass along a message and just whatever.
So
I
he
walked out.
received it.
He received it, and who knows? But and again, I don't think they test us. But there have been some weird things. But then
Random, but not random. It's like
very
you know
random.
you have to say something.
Well, you know that
I fought with myself too, and then I'm like, who am I talking to? This is early on.
Who are
I get
you?
a message. I'm not telling them that. But then I'd be like arguing in my head, like,
At least you're in your head.
yeah. But then I'm like, am I crazy?
So did you go tell him?
I had to.
You did.
It was a neighbor. So every time I went by the house, I was getting these messages. Tell him.
How did it turn out?
Well, okay, so I had this neighbor, and I kept feeling that he was dying, is what it felt like to me, and he just was sounding worse and worse and worse, like it sounded like he was dying too, and I was supposed to go and tell him he needed to go and seek medical attention because he wasn't. He was in denial, and I was very new to this. This is like a few years ago. I the closest I got to spirituality was like maybe an oracle card deck and turning a card every day. I mean, like, I was like,
That's pretty cool.
I mean, that was
Tarot.
like nothing, right? And I kept ignoring it. And then it was like this urgency, like and I
go pick
walk
up your
my
baby.
dog every day by this guy's house. He's my neighbor. So it got so intense, and I just flat out refused. And then one night it was like bothering me so much I couldn't sleep, and it was like, if I want any peace, I just have to say it.
I've never heard this story.
I never told you this story. I'm just gonna have to say it. And we had just moved into our place, maybe it's 4
that
years
here in
ago.
Houston?
Yes. And I said, I'm just gonna have to. He's gonna think I'm crazy. I don't even know him, but whatever. I gotta do it, or I'm never gonna sleep. This will not leave me alone. This feeling. And so I did. I was walking by, he was in his garage, and I said, hey, hi.
How you doing?
I know we don't know each other, but, I get information sometimes about people, and I just feel really pressed to tell you that there's something going on that needs your medical attention. I really feel like you should go and see a doctor. I don't know what's, going on with you at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really like that, really bad. Chain smoker, really bad. And then he disappeared for 3 months. I
scared
didn't
him off.
see him for no, he actually had gone and got treatment somewhere.
Did he have lung
It
cancer?
stayed with his sister. I don't
Before
know.
that? I mean, was that already in the works?
Like right after I talked to him, I think he did go to the doctor, and he disappeared for like maybe even 4 months. He was just gone. Like I never saw him. I'd see his partner, but I didn't know them. I wasn't going to go, hey, so how'd
that turn out? Was
your
that right?
partner? Yeah, is he alive? So, and then 4 months later, he showed up. He looked much better, and I guess he had gone to stay with a relative and get help. It was very interesting.
But what kind of help?
I don't
Did
know.
he
I
have
didn't.
cancer?
I'm assuming it was. I I don't know them, you know. It was just like I
You
said
get the pass. If you say something, you
no,
get to go back.
no. Passed the message on. I could get to sleep. I didn't have that crazy feeling every time I walked by. I unburdened myself. I passed it
Curiosity
on.
would kill me.
I mean, I knew
You take him a cake?
he
I mean,
went
take
and
him a
got treatment and
flowers.
for whatever it was, and he's still alive today. So
Awesome. You may have
I don't know.
prolonged his life.
I don't know. That was my first exposure to having something so pressing me so urgently for so long. Like I was just in denial, like I'm not doing that. They're going to think I'm nuts, you know. So anyway, I digress. I didn't mean to interrupt your
I
story.
love that story. No, I'm just saying it in my head. That's interesting.
Yeah.
My story's dragging on too long.
Anyway, you
Okay.
found your tribe. You found your community.
Yeah, I was honest. Came out. Mother-in-law, room mom, for one of my kids. We're at the zoo, and she said, so what did you do this weekend? I took a Reiki class. Oh, do you know so-and-so? Yes, she was in my class out of the thousands that go
Random,
on every
but not
weekend.
random.
Only 3 people in that class, and one of them was her friend. And so then I get invited to her house, and Tiffany's there, and who I went to high school with, and we didn't know it at the time. So we just all became friends, and we'd beat and talk and run energy on each other. And then one day, 4 a.m., I woke up. It's like, podcasting, you need a podcast. And I'd had a medium years ago tell me, a couple years before that, or maybe right before that, say people are going to come to your kitchen table for answers. I'm like, what answers do I have? and so then, and I hadn't put that in context. And so then, months later, year after that, whatever, I woke up with podcasting. I'm a mom, 3 kids, husband travels a lot. I mean, what do I know about podcasting? So then a month after that, Tiffany calls and says, hey, this rock station in Houston that was a big deal, 70s, 80s, 90s, the guys that started this particular show was starting an online show or an online channel. Like NASA is one of their clients. I mean, they all this stuff. They're like, we need content. You guys want a show? So we were in the studio for 2 years, and I remember everything was, we're going to talk about dead people. And then it was like 2nd gear, 3rd gear, and then it was, okay, so astral traveling out there, you meet aliens, what's going on?
Yeah, you went all the way from not
false
talking
and
about
walk.
a spirit very quietly to like, yeah, so what do you think about ETs? And, so you guys really kind of ran the gamut. And what I loved about it is I think your viewership kind of grew with you, They kind of got in at the ground level and then expanded. But
Great viewers.
not only was the show great for kind of cracking people open, check it out, The Joyride Show. I know all the recordings are still on YouTube, and they're still out there. But you went through an incredible, I guess I would call it an awakening or an incredible journey.
Well, it's an acceptance.
You became so aligned, I feel, with your guides, and you are so on point. I mean, you clearly read energy. You have so many gifts, too many to mention here, abilities and gifts and intuition. But your growth has been exponential over the last few years. And I was wondering if you could speak to that. What has it been like to navigate that and keep a foot in both worlds?
That's a great question. That's a really, really well-stated question. It's interesting because, as I was telling you before, when it's you don't see it. It's like seeing what color your own eyes are. I don't see it. And so I get clues here and there. It is, I've learned to compartmentalize. I really thought that I had to share everything with everyone. And so as far as keeping a foot in both worlds, it's more about bringing, because I think that's real life. I think what we're doing right here is a holographic school. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. I think it's a lot more than that. I think that anyway, I can go really far with that, but it's, but I think that it's about bringing the abilities into your everyday life.
Incorporating what you're learning into your way of being.
Yeah, and I don't try to incorporate it. It's just that
it's a kind of an organic process.
Sure, and that's and it's how you look at things. it is such a calling, just the exploration, that I can't, like you said, I can't not do it. It's like saying a football player, a sport guy isn't going, is going to drop all sports. It's not going to happen.
I also think once you see and know things, you can't unsee it.
No, and I grapple with that though. I mean, it is. I'd gone down the rabbit hole at one point with conspiracy theories. I've always had the ability to see patterns, and I've always rejected institutionalized anything. I mean, even as I was questioning a Baptist preacher when I was 11 years old.
Oh, God. I'm sure that didn't end well.
Why? And my why, and that's when I was always told that you're not supposed to ask why. And I remember sitting in a bookstore, and so here it is. You want to hear? Okay, so I had the beautiful gift of being able to see the new earth, or whatever you want to call it, different dimension. So after the arm thing, and I started looking at, oh my gosh, so they tell us to eat this food, and then we get sick, and then they pump us full of meds, and and I felt like I kind of saw behind the curtain, and it did not feel good, but I didn't anyway. So one day I'm sitting at the bookstore, and I open up David Icke's book, and his stuff doesn't resonate with me at all, but I was curious, and I opened it up to this point. And it was said something like the Bilderberg Group back in the 1960s met with Monsanto. Bilderberg Group, for those of you who aren't aware of it, it's a real group, and it's a lot of the heads of states, presidents, bankers, institutions, and they get together and they kind of say, okay, what's going on in the world? What's happening? But then there's the conspiracy side, which is that it's a negative force, and it's anyway. So on one side, the benevolent, we have this mass population growth. How are we going to feed them? Food will become an issue. And 30 years, 20 years, and so that's where
This is in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that's where they came up with this idea of genetically modified food. And I don't know if I have this right. This is what I remember reading in his book. And I thought, oh wow, that's where that started. And then it was, and the way it's always worked for me is this stone lights up, and my path I just follow my path. And if I don't, I get pushed on my path. But it's one thing, because I was told
those
very
breadcrumbs are very neatly placed in front of you, right?
They are
those crumbs.
But they said if you knew where the crumbs led, you wouldn't go.
Right.
But
that's for
because
sure.
You grow with your path. I mean,
right.
Really, truly. And
it's not, you kind of are spoon fed just what you can handle, and then you open up a little bit, and they're like, okay, we can increase what we're dropping in a little bit more, a little more.
But don't you know, they're probably going, oh my God, just stop thinking.
Stop resisting.
But so anyway, so then not too long after that, I thought, oh, so I eat this food, I get sick, pollution, food, alcohol.
It all starts making sense.
And then I'm pumped full of drugs, and then I just remember thinking, ooh, I don't want that. And so we went raw vegan for 3 weeks, and that was really hard. I didn't do
wow,
any research.
that's extreme. How did the kids take it?
Forks Over Knives. I made them watch it with me, and it's a great documentary, and I loved it because it's not like you can't do this, you can't do that.
I like that you gave them exposure and said, "What do you guys think about this?"
Oh, they have to be on board. I have 3 alphas, and they are like a pack of wild dogs. They'll take you down. So I do have 3 kids, and they're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
They're fun most days, but anyway, so
you had all this awareness.
Well, yeah,
coming online.
But then I'm, and this is again the very beginning, and I have this dream, and I don't know if you've been here yet for a hurricane in Houston.
I missed the last big one. I was in Boston on vacation.
I remember that, and then I don't think you could get back in.
No, I was stuck out there.
Poor you. So it's like we all wait. We know it's coming. Everybody's watching the news.
You're holding your breath.
Work. Everybody's getting water.
Right.
Everybody's, it's like it's a standstill. It's kind of fun.
Right.
In a dark way.
Right.
But and so in my dream, that's what this was, and it was, oh my goodness, it was like I saw detail, and usually I don't dream in detail.
So it was a very lucid dream for you.
It was, and then I'm out west. A friend of mine was at the house. He leaves his phone. I decide to come home. So the kids and my husband and I get in the car, and we're driving to the grocery store, and I just remember something was supposed to happen. Just something big was supposed to happen, and nobody was working that day. And so we're driving, and I remember seeing a chip potato chip bag roll by like trash, and all of a sudden we did this. I had this feeling of flipping off
a
a diving
somersault.
board. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it was a great feeling. It was like, oh, I guess we're going. And where, I don't know. And this is in my dream. And so the this woman meets me, Judi Dench. That's what I always say. She had short. She's wearing
I
a
can
robe,
picture her right
short
now
hair.
in my
She's
mind.
beautiful. And she said, "Do you know where you are?" And in the meantime, my children get up and run into the room. And my husband, sweet husband, this is when they were up, crack of dawn. And my husband said, go back to sleep. I have the boys. Okay, great.
In real life.
In real life. So I go back to sleep, go right back in. And she's waiting for me. And she said, "Do you know where you are?" And I said, "No." She's like, "Well, you peeked behind the curtain." And she said, "We have taken people off." And she said, basically, that things had gotten so out of balance. And she showed me, like, the world, the earth, and then kind of like a oozy stuff on top of it. And she said, "So we've pulled people off." And she said, "Do you have any questions?" Furball. She's like, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Well, yeah. Do I have a house?" She's like, "Of course you have a house." And my whole family came with me.
So you're in like a new reality.
Oh, it was sparkly air. I mean, it's like, it was so clean.
A higher dimensional
It looked like
reality.
Earth.
It's a higher dimensional Earth, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know, I'm guessing.
No, I mean, I didn't know. It was just a really cool dream. And then she said, "Do you think..." Sorry.
Carrie's cat is hacking up a hairball.
Yeah.
If you hear anything. Oh, there it
Super.
is.
Got it.
Sorry to distract you. Go ahead.
They're
Oh,
animals.
gosh.
But so then she tells me that, and I said, "Does my husband have a job?" And he's an attorney, but he's an intellectual property attorney with engineering background. She said, "Yes, but people don't steal ideas here, so he can."
It's a different type of work.
Right, and she said, "We see
With the same
planet."
skill set.
Yes,
probably.
She said, we see the planet with different ideas, and so apparently that's part of what he would do." And I said, "Big question, government. Is there a government?" She said, "Not like you have."
What's
There's a
cool is you got
council."
to ask these questions.
I know. I wish I would have asked better ones, but she's like, "There's a council."
I bet you can go back in.
I was thinking about that. Like, if I connected once, can I connect again?
Absolutely.
So, but I didn't know what it was. I woke up, I thought it was really cool, whatever. And so then I came across Dolores Cannon, and she talked about the new Earth, but it kind of scared me. I mean, it was really bizarre, and it kind of freaked me out. And funny thing. So the iPhone, where that plays in, I said, "So is everybody going?" She said, "Yes, eventually everybody will go." And she said, "You can track," and I'd asked about a neighbor or a friend. She's like, "You can track them." Like, apparently there was an app. You can track and see where people are. And it was really bizarre.
An Ascension app?
An Ascension app.
Oh, they didn't make it yet. They're waiting for the next train.
That's it.
They're not here yet, but they're coming.
They're coming. They're on their way.
Good to know.
But then Charles and I we were watching an HBO show, and they had an ad for a new movie, a new show called Leftovers, Left Behind, Taker, something like. I'm like, that's like my dream.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, and now I've realized that
those confirmations are really powerful.
Well, and I didn't know it at the time.
Of course not.
I mean,
but that's the seed planted, and then you're still talking about it. Clearly had a huge impact on you, and
well, I think it's the new Earth.
As you go forward, you start to make sense of what you've been spoon fed in.
That's it. Is that they're like, okay, here's
the
a puzzle piece.
pieces. Yeah.
Here's another one, and you're like, but
I'm still kind of on
together.
trying to put all my edges are all together, and I'm filling it in.
Mine are
filling in the
to come
grid.
Together. I mean, mine truly are
filling in my grid.
Well, and then it scares me. I'm like, wait, did I get that right? Did I get that right?
I think we all question ourselves, and I think a huge part of this process is learning to trust ourselves and kind of fine-tune our discernment. Because there's all kinds of information coming at us, and there's all kinds of energies coming at us, and our discernment around
what's mine,
what's aligned and what is ours, and what keeps us on our path is really where we need to focus. But it's so easy to get kind of pulled off. So discernment is huge. I'm gonna bring this into my reality because that aligns with my vibration.
Right.
This not so much. This theory. This kind of news, this kind of whatever.
Well, in recognizing it.
No.
Right.
And I'll just let that go. And it just, it's so interesting. It just falls away, and it's just not part of my reality until someone brings up something.
Give me an example.
Like we were just talking and you were talking about indictments or things coming around for this person who's involved in sex trafficking or whatever. Okay, that's not even on my radar, but you mentioned it. I'm like, interesting,
Just keep on.
But it's not part of my day-to-day life.
That's what I had to realize that. I had to, and it was actually Jesus that one day, every now and then I at the time I could connect to him. And he's like, you're swimming, because I was really, the conspiracy stuff is such a slippery slope because you question your reality. You question your reality completely. And I don't trust this. I don't trust that. I don't trust doctors. I don't trust our government. I don't trust our police. I don't trust.
You go pretty deep into fear.
Incredibly deep. And you get
which is very lower vibrational. There you go. The slime. Yes.
And I think that's very controlling, but it is. And finally, he was like, "Dude, you're swimming in this stuff.
Get out of it.
And you're just being like you're
getting slimed."
Right. And I am not. I realize, there are people that they shield up and they battle the dark and they battle this stuff and they're built for it. I'm not. I'm a light bearer. I bring in the candle that hopefully helps light the way for people that want to go that way. Mm-hmm. And I've also learned I don't say this is what it is. It's what if. Mm-hmm. What if? Mm-hmm. Let's just play with these ideas. I mean, what if? And if it fits, great. If it doesn't, great. And it's not that I won't commit to it or commit to the idea out of fear. Though I did. I was telling you that I just read this. I showed it to you close to probably 15 years ago. I did this personality test. It was my husband.
It was so spot on. So crazy.
And apparently I did. I don't remember doing it, but I did all of these. I did. You answer all these questions, and it tells you.
It's amazing how they create these.
I know.
Profiles that are so accurate.
Become to adapt. What do you do when you get stressed? The number one thing it said for me for fear, ironically, is going against what their beliefs they hold firmly.
Oh my God.
That's
and your whole role is to completely show a different perspective,
right?
Create a new pathway, shine a light, and it's completely outside of that framework.
Yeah, totally.
Good luck.
Well, I think the reason they showed it to me is I'd been saying, who am I? And I think they're saying, okay, look, this is where you're stuck. This is how you're wired. You have to untangle that little knot. And so
that'll be a huge piece.
I know. We're not quite there. But I am.
You are stepping out.
Oh, yeah, I am stepping out. But I haven't.
Your ideas are really thought-provoking. And I love your blog. She has a blog. I'm going to put a link to your blog.
Thank you.
In the comments so that people can access your writing. I love your writing.
Well, I appreciate that. I have a lot, but then I put it's what I get for putting putting a lock on your diary. I put a password on my online.
And then you forgot?
I can't figure it out. And so
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Maybe at the right time you'll get the download. It'll be like, oh yeah, and you'll unlock all this content and it'll spur you on.
Well, that's hopefully going to happen. Yeah, I know. It was like
there must be a reset thing.
I don't know. It's like, what is the hint?
So
the neighbor next door. Shit, what is that? Anyway. So
oh my gosh, really Kerry, that's hilarious. Really you have to get on the other side of fear. Mm-hmm. You have got to get on the other side of fear to unlock your potential, to unlock your truth, to become who you're meant to be. And align with your highest potential. I mean, I'm not saying you in particular. I mean, in general. Fear is such a hold on people.
It's such a paralyzer, and that's so. We did this. We're on this panel. She's a great speaker, by the way. We're on this panel in California, and I was on my way back, and I had my ticket. I'm on the plane. I'm looking for my seat, and I know I'm a window aisle, and I have it in front of me. And there it is. And I sit down, and I'm sitting next to this gentleman, lovely man, and we're talking, and I learned so much, and it was so thought provoking. And I don't want to go into his stuff, but it's but what I walked away with is this: number one, I was in the wrong seat. I was supposed to be.
I can't believe nobody came and said, "Hey, you're in my seat." Mm-mm. Number one, that's random, but not random, no, right? You were supposed to be right next to that person.
Yeah, lovely. So. But what I realized is that it was so obvious that the difference between living life in fear versus like making choices from fear, and we don't even see it. It's so subtle. So, for example,
So pervasive.
I have a good. The reason I brought up that story is that I, as this man is telling me these things, I realize, and this is what I expressed to him, is that he is making choices to avoid pain and to avoid his worst case. So, for example, if I don't do this, that might happen. It's not that, hey, I want to go do this over here. It's, let me give you an example. So, if I don't watch what I eat, I will get cancer and die. Versus, I love vegetables. I love this stuff. I love that.
I want to create my highest potential for a long and healthy life,
Right.
so I'm going to eat this way.
Right.
So
And
that's
I enjoy
that's
it.
a more enlightened approach versus the fear, which is, fear always kind of has you running with a gun to your head.
Oh, what a great! You need to. Do you not? Did you make that up?
Yeah, I just
I'm
came
gonna
up
write it
with
down.
that.
This we need to put it on a shirt. Okay, fear. Okay, keep talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep
So
talking.
anyway, fear is so pervasive yet subtle that we almost don't even recognize when we're responding to life from a place of fear. And I'm realizing that a huge part of my message is to get people to recognize fear and shift that mindset, because fear is so lower vibrational. I'm all about energy, right?
Right.
It's like strapping cement boots
Yeah.
on your feet and going for a swim. Don't do it.
But you're like, but I can. Or
I mean, it is. It's that paralyzing. It is that much of a problem. It will sink you.
it will. And to give you, and to me, this was just an easy example. Do you run because you want to look better, because you want to get that partner, and you want to look great naked, and or you don't want to die, because
Right.
you need to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bad one. Or do you run because you enjoy running? Do you swim because you enjoy swimming? And yes, there are some days that we have to just do it, but it is where are you making those choices? And then some people.
And
like,
are you living your life? I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you,
no,
but
no.
are you living your life because you are so worried about what everyone else is going to think? If you make a career change, if you fail, if you become an artist instead of stay in your corporate job, are you living your life because you are trying to fit in a box that the expectations of someone else has placed you in? Or are you living your life because this is what you authentically feel your purpose is and what you're called to?
Okay,
That's a huge question to ask yourself, people.
it is. We'll let that sink in.
It's huge.
So last night I met this. So we went to the baseball game, Astros game. They lost though in the 11th inning.
I love the stadium. that it made.
So I met this. He's a clerk, very sweet. He's not a boy. He's a man, and he said that he worked for 2 years he was an engineer doing what he thought he wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I kind of hate this. But it wasn't I hate this whine. It was I really thought my parents are engineers. I really thought this is what I was going to do. And he said that he had lunch. I said, tell me about that moment. Tell me
When
about
you
that
realized.
moment you decided to go to
Yeah.
law school. And he's going to a very good law school, and he's clerking with a really great firm. But I was really curious about that. And he said, funny you should ask that. He said, I had lunch with a childhood friend
Of
of
course,
mine.
he remembers the exact
Of
moment.
course he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got chills. So
Yeah.
there's something about this. He said, I had lunch with a childhood friend of mine, and she said, what did you want to be when you were growing up? He said, I wanted to be a lawyer. He's like, oh my God, I totally forgot. I wanted to be a
Oh
lawyer.
my gosh.
And he did it. He decided to go back to school for
And you
3
know what?
years,
He's
and-
going to be an amazing lawyer
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's what is calling to him.
And then I reminded him that, you know what? There may be a day that you decide that you want to buy a business, but then you've got all of these you've got this engineering background, you've got this, legal background.
And you know the excuses. That's fear. I can't do it. I can't because what'll people think? Or I can't because I already,
I have a mortgage, I have a wife, I have children.
Everybody has those fears and those excuses
fear of
as to
failure.
why.
Right.
Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of whatever
Fear of
it is.
success.
Fear of success is a
That's a
huge
weird
one.
one.
But it's huge and it's so prevalent, right? Fear of
Oh,
success.
I've battled that.
I have too. I've absolutely had to work through that.
Well,
And then there's so many, we could go so many directions with this. But the bottom line is,
fuck fear. Sorry.
okay, sure, we'll go with that. But the bottom line is we need to we need to realize that we came into this life to do something very specific. And for some people, that could just be walking through the world as themselves.
For everybody, it's that.
Yes, okay, yes, for everybody. But I'm saying, people have this grandiose idea that they need to be something. What's my life purpose? Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be you. You are supposed to be you, the fullest expression of you, the most beautiful expression of you, the highest and best version of you. But
we're not taught what that is. We're not taught how to explore
we have to
that
find
space.
that, right?
And we have to sit with ourselves.
We have to sit with ourselves to find out, who are we? I didn't even know who I was. Right. I was such a master at being. I could put a mask. I was a chameleon, man.
So was I.
I was good at it.
I was whoever I was with.
Yes, I was such a good chameleon that I didn't even know I was a chameleon.
You're a chameleon to yourself.
I chameleon myself.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I kind of finally found my groove and found my voice and found myself and aligned with my higher selves and got firmly in my lane, my husband was like, I don't even know who you are.
Ooh, but I love you. Go put a red wig on.
I don't know if he was that excited, but he was like, I don't even know who you are. I said, yeah, I mean, he was so used to me being this other person.
Well, being the pleaser, I'm sure.
Very much a pleaser, perfectionist, yes, type A, And it was so interesting that once I figured out who I was, to see people either align or fall away.
Right. And
it was like fast.
Well, that's
really fast.
And then you said it very eloquently. My thing is, if I fly my freak flag, it allows everybody else to too. And some people I'm going to resonate with, and some I'm not. Some people are going to be repelled by me. That's okay,
Yeah, the critics, boy, they're out there. And you know what? That's okay. If you don't align with their message, you don't align with what we're saying, change the channel. There's a million people who are promoting whatever you believe,
So that's been the really fun thing, is that we don't get the haters. We just don't on our channel. I mean, by and large, 98% of the people are lovely. They have lovely comments, and there was one fella, and I felt into him. And I love grousey people. I love people that other people find very gruff.
You alchemize the situation.
I just love, because to me they're being them, and they're so. It's like it's a wall,
right.
And they're going. Arr! Well, really, they're really kind underneath. But if you don't see it,
you saw that, which is so powerful. You leaned in.
My father can be like that. I mean, who? And
you have some experience.
If you're buying this bullshit, then he's not for you. Because he's a wonderful man. Anyway, so this fellow wrote in and I mean, just sarcastic.
A little snarky.
He ended up being our biggest bulldog. I mean, he was
really
so much fun.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
Like, Kerry got me. She got me. She figured it out. But I'm going to throw up the most obnoxious things.
That's so funny.
And it was a transmutation. But I also I
love that.
I cannot go away from the show without saying that. And I'm really not trying to plug what you do, but I want to tell you how I met this fabulous human being. So I'd been reading at the time a lot of Cryon, and we're talking about DNA and our DNA being turned on, and we have all this junk DNA, and some of it really is junk DNA, but a lot of it is DNA that they just don't know what it is, or what it's supposed to do.
It was dormant.
Yeah, and so I asked the guys, because they'll give you what you want. You just have to recognize it when it comes. And I said, I want to be in my fullest capacity. I want to be the superhuman that I think we all pretty much are, and it's possible. I mean, and I very much kind of said that prayer with I sent that message out with like
loud and clear.
Well, like a rocket booster strapped to it, and I'm not kidding. 1 day, 2 days after that, I think one day, I get this email, and Wendy had sent me this email, and you're in Houston, and I all I remember is I got not even halfway through, I was crying, and it was this is what I asked for right here. And so I didn't even finish the email. I wish I would have kept it. It's in an old inbox.
It's somewhere out there in cyberspace.
And so I called you, and you're like, okay, you can come in for a no touch, which is sort of the light version. And I'm like, nope, recalibration.
It's Marconics is what we're talking about. And Kerry
if they watch your show,
got recalibrated, which was
she,
awesome.
She kept saying, well, but if you want, why don't you just come in? And I'm like, no, I want the full meal deal. And
I want the DNA upgrades.
I want it. And it was fascinating because I think it did a couple of different things. I think that, number one, I think people that are drawn to your work are ready and they're being guided. And it's like, okay, get out of the matrix. Let's do something with this. So it's not just, higher vibrating. It is be ready. Be ready.
It's powerful.
Because a lot of the stuff falls away. A lot of it's not just it turns stuff on, but it also allows the scales to fall away, so to speak, and it allows the I think the veils are very much thinning, and it allows you to be able to access and see through the veils easier. It's something
you get plugged in a way that no other modality that I know of can plug you in. Mm-hmm. This is a soul ascension modality.
And let me tell you what I think that looks like. And this is my perspective only. When there are a lot of, and if you're watching this, and if you're still with us, yay, thanks. But there are a lot of ascension topics and ascension things. And so I've asked my team. I asked Bob about this. I have this new guy that came online around Christmas, and an ascension, from what I understand, isn't just fairy la la land that we're going to. It's like what Bob said is, he said, there are these younger realms, planets, and what happens is we allow darker negative influences to come in and play around, and they do, and they travel around like different planets, and because it gives us the duality,
contrast,
we need duality,
right?
There are a lot of places. I mean, if I can read you just by looking at you, then there is no duality, because we're all honest, and there's no such thing as honesty, because we're all in that state of kind of oneness. And so, but we're in a place where there isn't oneness. Yes, there is, but we're here to experience separation. So all of these things play. And so they said, it's time for you to take a seat at the grown-ups table. So that is why we're firing everything up. It's time. It's time for us to elevate to the next place.
Like that duality has served its purpose. Mm-hmm. Release your stuff, which means release your history, release your attachment to the trauma, release
the story.
Release the story and step fully into who you came here to be. Like we've experienced that darkness, and now it allows you to come and step into.
Well, it made us richer and fuller.
Right.
But at the same time, for me, this is like the thing. Ascension means we don't have to die and come back. Ascension means this is how I saw it. And there was a great cartoon, Coco, who illustrated that beautifully. I love it. It's such an incredibly visual.
That was an amazing show.
But I see the earth, and I see this web right around it, and we bounce back and forth. Reincarnation, we bounce back and forth, and we just go back and forth, and we don't go much further out there. It's almost like the Matrix.
It was literally 3 4 3 4 3 4 3D 4D.
And so that's what, when you're
and
a
you
medium,
could only transition that way.
Right. And so then what happens is, what my team has said is that once you realize what the rules are, you don't have to do it anymore. Think the Matrix. What's his face?
Neo.
Once he realized, I can't actually jump across that building and not die.
Multiply myself.
Exactly. And so
expand.
And that's what, so you get out of that matrix. You get out of the secondary matrix, and you can go beyond. And that is, Marconics very much is a tool to help if your soul is calling and if your soul is ready for that. And it doesn't do it for you, by the way. You're not all of a sudden going to wake up and go, oh, wow.
No.
That's not it. It allows you, it's like it takes
It allows
the
you the
governors off the car.
expansion. It
Right.
allows you the expansion, energetically, vibrationally, to, have your consciousness expand, to hold higher dimensional aspects of yourself, so your higher selves can come in and integrate. Because when you're in a closed torus, like the regular human has a closed auric field, you're limited by that
Right.
closed
Your
field.
governors are on.
Your energy is just circulating, but there's no expansion. You are in a very finite container.
So the torus is the one that looks like the donut inverted kind of.
Yes.
It sits and just goes around and
It's
around.
like
It's like recycled.
Yes. When you do a recalibration, we completely open that. You're no longer in a closed, finite torus. The energetic auric field is opened so much, you can hold higher aspects of yourself, higher selves. The vibration is so much higher and so much more expansive. They cannot integrate into a small, fixed space. You need to be expanded in consciousness and energetically to be able to hold that. As you expand, you're getting more higher selves accessible to you to come in and guide you, and there's that bleed through. Your awareness of higher dimensional realities and experiences and guidance is going to be available.
Well, that's where the real work begins, though, because it's sort of like saying, okay, guess what? You're really a billionaire, but you're the one that has to quit acting like a pauper, and it's you. It takes it, and that's why I think the people that come to you are ready for that, because
there's a lot of inner work that's involved and evolution. It's like I'm giving you the keys to the Porsche.
But you have to learn how to drive.
You got to drive it out of the driveway and go somewhere. If you're going to sit there and idle.
Which
is fine. Wrong. Yes, that's personal choice.
But then there's shame.
Yeah, but then there's people who are going to back that sucker out and go. And where they go is like so incredible.
It really is. It is so much fun. And anyway, so
well, thank you for the conversation about Marconics. Well, that wasn't on the agenda, but
no, it
appreciate you talking about that.
But I think it's been, you'd asked me about my path, and I think that it has been an integral part, so much so that I don't see it. I mean, I see the results of it, but it's anyway. So
what I've seen for Kerry is an incredible connection and alignment with her higher selves. It was like the channel was just opened, and you were open to that communication.
Not always.
You've resisted in the past, that's for sure. But you get so much information. You learn so much from yourself because they're higher aspects of you.
Well, and that's
bringing information down. You're not going to get more pure information than from your higher aspects of self for you.
I think that is so true, and I think that this guide Bob is like, okay, we need to do some work, and he's wonderful at teaching me, and he'll go through. So it's my guides that are teaching me, and it's not
external. It's not external.
And I've done it. I mean, James Van Prague, I signed up, paid $1,000 for his online course.
That's part of the process, right? Is the external seeking, and then you come back to yourself and you realize, oh, I can just tap in and I can get the information that I need, and allowing it and trusting it,
right?
And using discernment around it is part of the journey, right?
It is part of the journey, and and it's not always easy, and it is easier to go to somebody that you trust and say, hey, what do you think? But at the end of the day, it's like asking for advice from someone you don't know very well,
like a stranger,
right?
And the information's coming through their filters,
I've always
and their life experience and their fears or whatever.
If they're not having a good day, it's going to show up, and mediumship is so beautiful, and for me it is the on-ramp. It is the, guess what, most people that go to mediums are seeking for a painful reason. Lost a parent, lost a pet, lost something, and it's such a hit when you realize, holy shit, this person's real, and it's like all of a sudden you have the governor's off for just a moment of, I can, there is really God. Most people, at least in my experience,
or even life after death.
I hope so. I mean, I have faith, and I go to church, and at the end of the day, I sure should hope this is real, because we don't know, but that's what faith is. But when you have seen it, and you're able the mediumship stuff is just where it begins. I mean, that again is just the on-ramp.
It's like cracking the door open. There's a whole world out there beyond it.
There is. There really is. It is. Worlds.
Which is accessible to every single person.
But that's ascension right there. It's knowing who you are.
Yes.
And I'll tell you one last little story. So one night I've seen craft in the sky, and one night I was laying in my backyard with my 5 stars visible because of the light pollution. I live down inside Houston, and I'm laying there, and whatever reason I'm crying, and it's just like, no, I wasn't crying yet. I was like, because I've been asking, why do we have to go through this veil of forgetfulness? Why? I mean, what is the point to this? And I know what the point is on a logical standpoint, but and I was like, wait a minute, okay, so if, and I knew I tapped into somebody. I knew I tapped into somebody up there, and the way they come in for me is they come in like a shooting star, and then they move around. Like the craft doesn't have like a planned course, a charted course. It moves, and so but it always comes in like a shooting star. And I told Sarah, a friend of ours, we're all looking at the sky one night, and I was like, I wish it was like a shooting star, and then it did. And so from then on, it comes in like a shooting star. So I'm laying there, and I'm like, why do we have to forget? And it's like, okay, wait a minute. So let's just say, and I have a beautiful family, but let's just say I'm born into this family, and the way we are as humans, in order to survive, you have to acclimate to the family you're in, good or bad. And then hopefully you go out of, I even want my children to go out and question and question
find their
everything
own
I've
way.
said. Exactly. And then you go out and, and we find pain, and because we're so separate from each other, like I'm trusting my husband loves me. I'm trusting that I'm interpreting things the right way. And, and then you get hurt and you get all this stuff, your family hurts, people do get hurt. And yet we still find love, and we still find our way back to love. And how cool is that? I'm like, I get it. And then all of a sudden this shooting star, big wink, and then it starts cruising around. I'm like, there's my family.
There was your confirmation, right?
Well, and that's like,
super
we're
cool.
saying that there's more. There is so much more.
So much more.
And they're all there.
And it's not to be feared.
No, but discernment is the key.
Yes.
Don't plug into anything. Unless you know what you're plugging into.
Yes. But part of the journey of awakening is learning to trust yourself and energetically feel.
So how do you feel it?
It's a feeling in my core, and it's a feeling in my heart. It's like a yes. It's like a yes. When it's a solid yes, it's like it hits me like a solid yes in my being. It's not a thought.
Well, and that's another thing to clue
It's a feeling.
It is a feeling, because you have to turn your brain off, really. I mean, I think a lot of us are starting to turn our brains off and going with our heart and our emotional bodies.
Heart-based living, it's kind of like that's where your alignment is. That's your GPS. Your mind is going to talk you out of everything. It's going to create doubt, fear. It's going to send you in a loop that you can't get out, and it's a groove you can't get out of. If you stay in your mind, you have got to drop into your heart and get comfortable with opening your heart and feeling things.
Well, and that's what I've always said. Your brain is only full of what you've had experienced.
It's more
this
conditioning,
lifetime.
programming, right? Conditioning and programming.
But your heart goes across all the chapters of this soul's experiences.
The full spectrum.
Right. And I think that it is something you just said really sparked something. I don't know. I can talk for hours, so you probably...
Well, keep going. We'll finish this. Keep going. We have a few minutes left.
We're talking about... Ashley from the Center. She doesn't have a last name. She's been on our show. She's one of the most incredible human beings I know. She was saying... I'd called her one day. I actually had a session with her, and I was working through a big breakup, and not husband, but... a friend of mine at the time, and she said, where do you feel it in your body? And I never thought of it that way. It's like, okay, where, like when, like if you're not sure about something or a situation or someone, where are you feeling that? Because if you can start to identify where you feel things, it'll tell you things. Like you'll recognize it the next time. So, I felt that before in my back, pain, left, and it's related to that situation. Or with your emotional body, are you feeling it in your solar plexus? Where are you feeling it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my sign, that's my key to know that there's some shady shit going on. And it really is.
That helps to get that discernment
Well,
GPS going and
That's
alignment.
what it is. It is your roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
And you have your own roadmap. So if you feel it in your third eye and you constantly feel something tapping on your third eye, that might be them saying, hello, we're
Wake
trying to get your
up.
attention.
Connect.
It doesn't have to get bad. So anyway,
Exactly.
yeah.
Wow, Kerry,
you
this
for
has been
this.
so awesome. Thank you
This has been
for
awesome.
joining me. All this great thought-provoking content. I hope you will come back again.
I would love to come back
We
again.
have so much to talk about. You guys don't
really
even
do.
want to know hours go by.
We do.
But anyway, to my audience, I want to thank you for joining us today for this enlightening conversation. I hope you'll subscribe, like, and share with your friends if it resonated. I love y'all, and I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Be kind to yourselves.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
We'll see you.